All right, so today I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of Dexter. This episode is entitled Popping Cherry. Now, what I'm going to do during these reviews from now on is talk about each individual story thread all the way through, rather than being kind of all over the place. So with this episode, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Dexter's very first kill. We're going to talk about the ice truck killer in that storyline, and we're going to talk about Dexter's next targeted victim. There's a few other things thrown in here as well. Now, this episode starts at the cop's funeral, the cop that got killed in the previous episode. Dexter's there wearing sunglasses. He has some of that internal monologue saying, he likes to wear sunglasses because this keeps him from having to show emotions at activities like this. While there, Dokes talks to the dead cop's brother in this episode and gives his condolences. The cop found that a little strange because they don't work together, but Dokes showed some unusual concern. Shortly after this, Dokes confronts Guerrero, the individual who had this cop and his wife killed, at an event to celebrate Guerrero's daughter. This sets Guerrero off and tells Dokes he might want to watch out. Dokes later then agrees to go out with the brother and his friends to get drunk because of everything that's happened. But instead, these cops have a different idea. They're going to go terrorize one of Guerrero's thugs. Dokes wants nothing to do with this. He actually runs off when they go to do this because he knows that Guerrero will know that it was him who was involved, and he wants nothing to do with it. The dead cop's brother says that's exactly why they're doing it, because he knows that Dokes was having an affair behind his brother's back. Dokes then sees later in that episode that Guerrero's men are in fact targeting him because of what happened that night. Now let's talk a little bit about Dexter and Rita. Rita is visited by a guy looking for payment for her ex-husband's bad deeds. Dexter's there in the front yard with her, and he demands money. She offers her car in payment instead. Dexter just lets her do what she needs to do. The guy drives off with a vehicle, and Dexter actually offers to have his precinct follow up on this and they can get the car back. She doesn't want that. She just wants this part of her life gone. So she just says, nope, let it go. I will get another vehicle when I can. This puts her in a position where she can't pick up her kids all the time. And at one point during this episode, Dexter picks up one of her daughters, Astrid. And we get to see kind of a touching moment with Dexter and her kids when she comes home and sees Dexter trying to pull a splinter out of her daughter's finger. Later on, Dexter brings her a car from Impound that they were going to auction off. Now let's talk about Dexter's kill in this episode. There is a young boy being let out of incarceration, and Dexter has found that this boy had killed another teenager, lured him out to see a crocodile, and then brutally killed him with a knife. The way in which he was killed kind of leads Dexter to believe that this kid is going to do this again at some point. So Dexter follows him. Shortly after this, the boy is at a bazaar buying a knife. And as he's kind of playing with it in the air, he almost stabs Dexter. Dexter then later follows the boy, and the boy is leading another teenager out to kind of an open area to see a crocodile. As the boy doesn't see the crocodile, the young kid pulls out a knife and is just about to stab him when Dexter stops him. The boys run off. Dexter goes to his car and finds out that those boys actually broke into his car and took his wallet. So that leads to the point where Dexter is about to subdue the boy. He goes to a halfway house where the boy is staying, kind of turns off the lights and kind of corners the boy and pushes him up against the wall and is about to inject him with what he uses to subdue his victims. When the boy starts talking about, are you here to rape me? Because the last guy who raped me was brutally killed. I killed him. And that kind of stops Dexter in his tracks because Dexter doesn't want to kill anybody who doesn't deserve it. And he says, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, the last guy who did this to me raped me. And he goes, that guy didn't survive and neither will you. So Dexter realizes he might be making a big mistake here. So he turns the boy around, shows himself and says, all I'm here for is my wallet. He used that as a cover. He said, all I want is my wallet. So the boy gives him his wallet, and Dexter leaves. So he was about to kill an innocent boy, but he did remind the boy that it looked like he was about to kill that kid and said that kid didn't deserve it and to keep that in mind for the future. So that situation kind of reminds Dexter of his very first kill. His first kill wasn't perfect either, and it had to do when he was a little bit younger. His father was in the hospital, pretty much looking like he was on his deathbed. He was going to die. His father lets Dexter know that his nurse has actually been poisoning him to make him sick so that he will die. Dexter does a little bit of research and finds out that this nurse has a lot of deaths under her name. So he sets up for his first kill at the behest of his father. And it didn't quite go as he planned. It was kind of a few comedy of errors when he was trying to kill this individual, and it definitely was not as clean as it is today, the way he functions today. But he learned a lot in that situation, and him almost killing that boy, even though that was a mistake, it wasn't a mistake killing the nurse, but he made a lot of mistakes during the process. All right, now the last thread we're going to talk about in here is the ice truck killer. There is a body that is found on the ice rink of the Miami Blades. That body is cut up in many parts and is missing its fingertips, the same fingertips that we kind of found in the last episode. Deborah notices that this is someone she used to work the corner with when she was in Vice. Her name is Cherry. They pull the footage from the ice and bring it back to the precinct. In the meantime, Deborah goes to see the girls that she used to work the corners with. And when they meet up with her, they let her know that Cherry was last seen driving a station wagon. So then it pulls into the scene where the entire precinct is put together and LaGuerta is having kind of a briefing about this situation. After looking through the footage, they've determined that Stanley Tucci, the night watchman at that rink, is probably going to be the killer. And that's their number one suspect. Deborah then interrupts and says, does he own a station wagon? LaGuerta cuts her down right there in front of everyone, and this really upsets Deborah. Later, Deborah is going through the footage herself and notices that when Tucci is actually placing the body on the ice, he actually looks off to the side, like he's taking direction from someone. Rather than bring this information to LaGuerta, she goes above LaGuerta's head, straight to LaGuerta's boss. This does not sit well with LaGuerta's boss. Tells Deborah that this is not the chain of command. She should not be going over her boss's head, and he expected more from Dexter's, father's daughter. Tells her to never do that again and that she does need to see LaGuerta. Well, he then goes to LaGuerta to tell her that not everybody trusts her, and that if something goes south with this Tucci idea, he's not going to be there to bail her out. And that's where this episode ends. So we're going to find out in the next episode what the ice truck killer does. There's actually a big jump in the storyline in the next episode, and it's going to be very interesting. There's going to be a little cat and mouse game that he plays with Dexter. So that'll be in episode 4 of season 1. I'll have that review up sometime later this week.